Estoril in Portugal. I'm Larry Newber. This, of course, is John Bizigiano. And you know, the storyline of this season has been the Gang of Four in terms of the points contest. Well, for at least two of that gang, John, every single point finish becomes so critical here in the final three races.
Exactly. The people with the most to do here are, of course, Senna and Prost. But you know, Larry, a rule in counting these points is that you can only count the best 11 races throughout the season. Now, something you have to calculate is that so far this year, Nigel has scored points in 10 races. So virtually he can only score points in one more race, and then he has to actually start dropping points. It's the very same thing for Prost. He has one more race to count, where Piquet and Senna can actually count the remaining of the season. So the pressure is really on them, and mathematically it's becoming very complicated. So we're going to see those people out there racing with a computer going on in their mind as far as who's in front of them and how many points those people have and where it's going to put them as far as the number of points dropped. It's really becoming something that you needed another onboard computer to deal with all of the mathematical possibilities.
Well, there's a reason why this report is coming to you from the Pirelli compound here at the Formula One race. At least in the foreseeable future, this will be one of the last times we will be able to do this. Pirelli announced officially this week, announcement expected by some, that they officially are withdrawing from Formula One racing, leaving only Goodyear, John.
Yes, it's kind of sad. Goodyear actually wants competition in Formula One, but the Pirelli story comes down to a very expensive program without much success. Nelson Piquet won for them, and that's really the only victory they've had in Formula One, with an awful lot of investment of money, time. It's paid off in their research department, but promotionally and marketing-wise, it just hasn't been as successful as they would have liked.
Well, as John alluded to, for Goodyear there are positives, but surprisingly, there are also negatives. And earlier this week, John had a chance to talk to the man in charge for Goodyear.
Leo Mel, director of worldwide racing for Goodyear. It was last week that Pirelli announced they were not going to continue in Formula One. How does that affect your position?
Well, at the present time, we're taking care of 60. We're supplying tires to 16 cars. There are about 28 here. So at the present time, there's 12 cars without tires for next season.
And what are you going to do about those 12 cars?
At the present time, we're not planning to do anything about it. We have quite an investment supplying tires to the 16 cars. It's a very expensive proposition to send tires all over the world. The technical requirements for the constantly changing Formula One cars require a big investment. They're speaking now of changing the regulations for next year, which would make the current tire we have obsolete. We'll have to develop a new tire to satisfy the 16 cars. We think that there's going to be a major problem with the tire supply for next year.
But Leo, as far as expense, if you were supplying everyone, would you not be able to come up with one or two compounds that work the same for virtually everyone? Wouldn't that somewhat decrease your costs, especially relative to qualifying tires?
Well, qualifying tires, we will save one or two sets per race. But you understand, during the qualifying period, they will use racing tires. We will not make a qualifier. They'll use racing tires. But each racing tire has a fast lap in it. It may be the first lap or the fifth lap, and these drivers will find that fast lap, drive the car very hard, destroy those tires, and they won't be available for racing again. So basically right now, during the 1 hour qualifying period, that's the least amount of tires we use throughout the whole weekend. That will not significantly affect the amount of tires that we have to bring if we were to supply all the cars.
Would you like to see Michelin come back in?
We'd like to have competition, absolutely.
Well, Larry, that's not very good news for the Pirelli tired teams here, and I'm sure they're going to be watching the situation developing very closely over the next few weeks.
Well, the next very critical race in the 1986 Points Championship for Formula One. This pre-race report has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? Back with the starting lineup right after this. The Grand Prix of Portugal. Actually, this is only the third one in the contemporary era. They began having races here at Portugal just in 1984. Prost and Senna have won the 2 previous races. There were 3 races here back in the 1950s. This is Larry Newber. Joining me, as usual on these broadcasts, is John Bisignano. And we are very happy to be here for the 14th race of the 1986 Points Championship. As you can see, we're just moments away from the final reconnaissance lap. The grid on the pole for the 7th time this year. Ayrton Senna, yes, the Brazilian has done it again in his Lotus Renault-powered V6 power. And once again, he sits on the pole. There you see a graphic of the layout of the course. On second is Nigel Mansell, the 4-time winner of this year. Third on the grid is Alain Prost. He is third in points, and many think he's one of the favorites to win today. Fourth is Gerhard Berger in car number 20. The Austrian driving one of the Benettons has twice been the fastest lap car in a race. In fifth on the grid is his teammate, Teo Fabi, the Italian in the team car Benetton, car number 19. Sixth in the grid, Nelson Piquet, second in points, and there are those, including Alain Prost, who say he may be the favorite to win the championship this year. Seventh, Keke Rosberg, Finland, a Marlboro McLaren Tag V6. Eighth, Stefan Johansson, the Swede running the fastest Ferrari of this weekend. In ninth, Riccardo Patrese, the Italian in the Brabham, a BMW. It's just a 4-cylinder powered car. René Arnoux from France is in 10th in the grid. He, of course, is running a Ligier. From 11th on back now, here is the following cars. Philippe Alliot in 11th. Derek Warwick starts 12th. In 13th, or the equivalent of the 7th row, Michele Alboreto and Patrick Tambay. 15th and 16th, Johnny Dumfries and Andrea De Cesare. 17th and 18th, Alan Jones, the former world champion, and Zendro Nannini. Followed by Martin Brundle, Jonathan Palmer. In 20th and 21st starting positions, Terry Boutsen, who just won a world sports car race, and Christian Danner, his teammate. In 23rd and 24th, Philippe Screff and Piercarlo Gintani. In 25th, 26th, and 27th, Ivan Capelli, Hugh Brattengatter, and Alan Berg.
As you can see there's a layout of this course on your screen, and that sweeping corner there lets the cars come onto the main straightaway at a very high speed and actually hitting some 200 miles an hour before they go into the sharp right-hander way down at the end of the pit straightaway. One quick thing to mention here is that Alain Prost, battling for this world championship, has chosen his T car to start the Portuguese Grand Prix. T standing for test or training car. It has very few miles on here, but has been set up identically to the race car that he has been practicing and qualifying with all weekend long, but still it's a bit of strange territory to go ahead and start the Portuguese Grand Prix in a T car.
And John, his teammate Keke Rosberg is in a white and yellow painted car. That's for Marlboro Lights. John, the points are very critical.
Incredibly critical. As we said in the head of the program, mathematically, anything can happen here, and some people are trying to make everything can happen. And we're going to have to comment on the points and what positions different finishes would put people throughout the event.
It's a complicated formula. The cars are rolling up to the grid, and Ayrton Senna jogging to his right, your left, taking up his respective position on the pole. Moving up next will be one of the Williams team cars. We called them a gang of 4 at the beginning of the broadcast. That's one of the gang of 2, Mansell.
Now, those yellow signs that you see down each side of the track, those signs are held by individuals that are looking at the drivers, and the driver must mention to that person or motion to that person that the engine is running so that they will not be left on the grid. And here we have the in-car camera. As you can see, it's in the USF&G Barclay Barrows car of Christian Danner. We hope that this camera will be working throughout the race. But as those signs pull back, we'll have, hopefully, a clear start. The last sign is back. Look for a green light up in the corner. Green light is on. And so is the Portuguese Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna certainly makes a great start, but it's the Honda that pulls him down this long straightaway. Very clean start, I think, Larry.
One of the Williams getting away very slowly and caused a traffic jam in the back of the pack, but I saw nobody make contact. It looks squeaky clean, and the Williams of Nigel Mansell, where he has been so very many times in 1986, leads at least the first couple of corners. There is the first of 4 180-degree turns on this racetrack. We're now going down to almost the infield section of the speedway. You come down here, this is a backstretch that runs down the middle of the racetrack. The track is like an elongated oval with a rectangle on the top of it, right between like turns 2 and 3, if you're thinking in terms of a circuit, in terms of an oval.
Along this back straightaway, they're coming into one of the favorite passing places, but right now, Ayrton Senna is not close enough to Nigel Mansell to even think about passing. Tremendous Honda power out of that Williams Formula One car, sporting around 850 to 900 race horsepower, depending on what the boost is set at.
This is an uphill and downhill course. They are in the downhill section. Now, even though the gradient is only 7 degrees different, it races higher than that, steeper than that. When you're on the course and looking at it, it looks like much more than a 7-degree turn. This is the front stretch. Nelson Piquet, you can see, fighting his Williams out of the final turn. The crowd stands up as the first lap of the 1986 Portuguese Grand Prix is history. There is turn number 1. Turn number 1 leads on to a short straight where Mansell is right now. There is turn number 2. Turn number 2, another short straight. Now to turn number 3, which again is the first of the 3 180-degree turns on this circuit. Coming down a very short chute to turn number 4 into the infield section. Again, we'll refer to it as that. Now, this is a backstretch that runs parallel to the front stretch. There's a little dogleg right there. It's like a Trenton Speedway dogleg, if you're familiar with the old course in America, leading to the east end of the infield section. This is turn number 6. That dogleg is classified as turn number 5. Now uphill, there's another 270-degree corner coming up as they turn to the right, downshift, begin to go uphill, up that 7-degree hill underneath the Olivetti Bridge. They're about halfway around. As we go to the top of the hill, the highest elevated point on this racetrack, they begin to decelerate, or rather accelerate as they come downhill to turns 8, 9, and 10. And then as they approach turn number 11, where Mansell is right now, it looks like a straightaway, but this is actually another 180-degree sweeping corner leading onto the front stretch. You can see he gets there very quickly. Mansell leading lap number 2.
Right behind him, the beautiful John Player Lotus of Ayrton Senna. Of course, in Portugal, they speak Portuguese, and of course, Ayrton Senna, being from Brazil, that also speaks Portuguese. It's sort of a satellite country or a sister country. The crowd here is absolutely very hopeful for a Portuguese-speaking victor, either Ayrton Senna or Nelson Piquet. Everyone here is certainly sporting Brazilian flags and a great deal of Portuguese-Brazilian spirit. This would be, Portugal is to Brazil maybe what Canada is to the United States. Sort of a friendly border across the ocean. But right now, these two cars are pulling away from the rest of the field. We do not understand from any of the team managers that the Portuguese circuit is particularly sensitive to fuel. So the drivers should be able to run pretty much as hard as they want and not worry about running out of fuel before the end of this 70-lap track.
This race a year ago was won and run and won in the rain by that man right there, Ayrton Senna. No real threat of rain, although it is cloudy here, as it has been throughout each of Friday, Saturday, and of course it's dawned here on Sunday. One of the Benettons, and we believe it is Gerhard Berger, according to Olivetti computer scoring, has moved up to 3rd. If that's the case, he has passed at least one of the Williams cars as well as one of the McLarens.
I think he got by that Williams right at the start. He did a terrific job of dragging down this long straightaway as soon as the green light came on, Larry. And there we have the in-car camera. Again, in Formula One, this is somewhat of a new phenomenon. We know that in the Indianapolis-type cars and the stock cars, you're very used to it, but the International, that's the cleaning fluid going on to the lens. He just did not go through a little bit of rainstorm there, but that is the cleaning fluid.
Nigel Mansell, who has led more miles than anybody else so far in 1986, is leading the early stages of the Portuguese Grand Prix as we go back in car and watch from the USF&G arrows. The shores of the Atlantic Ocean, Portugal, just west, of course, of the country of Spain, and this is the Portuguese Grand Prix. The Portuguese Grand Prix is being brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, PA Radio, built for you to take on the road. And by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
This is the group that is battling for 3rd, 4th, and 5th position. At the front of it, you have Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, but certainly the Brazilian Piquet is having a look there on the inside, and behind him is the current world champion in the world famous McLaren team, winning the world championship the past 2 seasons. Prost was actually the fastest car in morning warm-up. Morning warm-up is very important relative to the race because it's the first time that the teams actually load the cars full of fuel and race in a very same type of conditions that they would set up the car throughout the afternoon for the racing battle. So you have to watch Prost. If he was almost 1.8 seconds faster than the nearest competitor in this morning warm-up, so he certainly should be able to reel in a little bit towards these front runners. It's unbelievable how much Senna in the Lotus and, of course, Mansell in the Williams, powered by Honda, have pulled out. But right here, that is...
It's not Teo Fabi.
It's not Teo Fabi. It is Berger from Austria.
Yeah.
But still, the Portuguese spotters here have credited to Fabi, but we are sure that it is not.
Yeah, a momentary thrill for all the Americans who remember the great 83 season of Teo Fabi. Again, as John told you, there is third Berger, fourth Piquet, and fifth Alain Prost. In sixth position is Teo Fabi. Keke Rosberg is seventh. Eighth is Stefan Johansson at this point after 4 laps officially completed. Ninth is Rene Arnoux, and 10th is Michele Alboreto. The Ferraris are in the wake of one of their 2 or 3 best races of the season. And there in the pits is one of the Ocellos, I believe, looked like Piercarlo Genzani. Looked like the orange helmet there. Now, 11th through 20th on back, Alio, Patrese, Warwick, Dumfries, De Chestris, Jones, Tambe, Brundle, Boutsen, and Strupp.
In watching this battle for third place, the BMW-powered Benetton car, you can see how it can accelerate out of those corners. The Williams is actually picking him up at the end of the straightaways and under braking. The 4-cylinder BMW has tremendous torque and excellent point-to-point acceleration. Nelson Piquet there from Brazil is catching him up on the brakes and just the extra horsepower that the Williams Honda can deliver. A little bit off the side of the course there on the exit of that particular right-hander went the Benetton car, Alain Prost from France. This is a very memorable racetrack to him. Last year, spinning out right on the main straightaway, 3 or 4 spins off the guardrail, back on the circuit, into the guardrail again. And this is also where he lost the World Championship, as we said earlier, by 1/2 point to Niki Lauda. But he's closing in on them, Larry. This is what he does best, just absolutely perfect technician relative to fuel and pacing himself, saving his tires. But it has to be nice for the Benetton people at the moment in that third-place battle.
That Olivetti Bridge, remember, about halfway around this 2.7-mile circuit, 4.35 kilometers, for those of you who are so inclined. There are 8 right-handers on this course and 3 left-handers. There is the brand-new AGS car of Ivan Capelli that debuted in Monza.
Yes, it's too bad that Ivan has had such a short race. This team has worked very hard on getting this car ready for Monza and this particular race. And for a new team, just out, they actually qualified in 25th position, so there were 2 cars behind them, and they've done quite a good job with that little vehicle, and they hope to continue for the rest of this year for sure and throughout next season.
We'll continue to give you a little orientation. This is turn 2. First straightaway out of turn 2 to turn 3. Again, the first of those complete turnabouts, just so you get yourself oriented in this circuit, 2.7 miles around. Then they come out of 180 into another. It's classified as turn number 4. Now entering that backstretch again. Visualize in your mind an oval with this backstretch dipping down at the center of the oval. You'll run clockwise, not counterclockwise in the States. There's Piquet looking to the inside of Berger, and Piquet has picked up a position. Nelson Piquet has moved into third spot. More on the track description in a second. John.
Well, Nelson Piquet, I think he must have taken an advantage there of a mistake by Berger. You can see the flames coming out of the back of his engine, but right now that should be somewhat normal. They look a little bit more exaggerated than usual, though, in the way Prost has come up on him, that he may be having somewhat of a problem there. But there's no way that Piquet gained that ground and shot past him so decisively. Here we can see he's a little loose there on that side of the track. He may have got on the binders just a bit too hard. He's still loose. And Piquet, as I was saying, he had the braking advantage into that apex of that corner, and now he is pulling away. Nigel Mansell, your leader from Great Britain, has just set the fastest race time here at 1 minute 32 seconds.
You cannot give a driver like Nelson Piquet even just a door ajar, because he is through it more quickly than you can even see. Nelson Piquet, we've seen him with some tremendous battles for the lead in earlier Formula One races this year, and now he sets his sights on the second-running Ayrton Senna. The leader of this race continues to be Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell, one of the Williams, numbered 5, Nelson is third. Ayrton Senna is sandwiched in between second. There is a fight right now for sixth position, I believe, as one of the Williams was that going by.
It was actually Keke Rosberg in that yellow and white McLaren. We're not so used to seeing
like
that yellow and
cars,
white
yeah.
McLaren, but it was Keke Rosberg coming on the inside there of the other Benetton car driven by Teo Fabi. That is, again, one of the favorite passing places. The cars reaching just under 200 miles or just over 200 miles an hour and hard on the binders for that right-hander. And Keke Rosberg actually is putting some mileage closing up on number one there, Alain Prost. Of course, in Formula One, when you become the world champion, you have the honor of running the number one number for the next season all year long. And his teammate would be number two, Keke Rosberg, who is filling his mirrors at the moment.
John, in a situation like this, early in the race, I would suspect no team orders. But we get late in the race, Rosberg is out of it for the World's Championship. I think he would be asked to move over if we were late in the race and points were the only thing that were at stake. If a win was at stake, then I let Keke take it.
If a win was at stake, Keke would take it.
Yeah, I guess that's a better way of putting it.
Keke always has a tremendous fighting spirit. He's from Finland, of course, and it's unbelievable the number of flags from Finland as we have one of the Zach Speed cars pulling off there at the end of the circuit. I think that's Hoop Rottengatter. It's a little bit far from us. It is Hoop. He's trying to come across the circuit. A little bit of a dangerous move there, Hoop. And he's trying to get into the pit lane, I believe, but he is having a little bit of trouble in that West-sponsored Zach Speed. We have seen many Finlanders, or Finns, if you will, down here, all the way from Helsinki area. That would be like driving from Nome, Alaska to Daytona to see an automobile race. And I don't know how many Yanks would try and make that particular journey. And when you talk to them, they act like it's the adventure of their life. As you see, the top six here, Mansell, Senna, Piquet, Prost, Rosberg, and Berger. Now, you always see top six given in Formula One because that's where the points are scored. It's 7 scores, no points whatsoever. So the top six is the very important thing here, and it's those top 4 people that are battling away. Right now, the first 4 are the players in the World Championship. As we see that the Osella has now gotten back on the course, so Genzani has solved his problems in the pit. As Alan Jones has spun out. This looks like the corner at the end of the very long straightaway. Alan Jones from Australia in the Haas Beatrice Ford, Lola Ford. As you can see, Jonesy there, sporting a new sponsor of Foster's Beer on the top of his helmet, picked up this weekend. Alan Jones, the previous world champion. We might have, yes, he was just in front of his teammate, Patrick Tambay. You can see him, and he's off, not at the end, but in the next corner, into the sand. The sand is actually slowing him down. You can see it piling up there on the extremities of the tire, and that's what slows the car down. Kind of an unusual way to crash, as you see the Ferrari of Stefan Johansson putting the heat on Teo Fabi. It looked like something must have broken in Alan Jones' car. You see that Alan, with no contact with any other car or barrier, immediately got out of the machine. He is coming off of one of his most successful runs of the season. The last 2 races in a row, he has scored points. Jones has scored 4 points in the last 2 Formula One races as the Ferraris continue to fill up the rearview mirrors of Teo Fabi. Fabi looking at Stefan Johansson and then Michele Alboreto as they are together, the 3 of them, looking toward 6th position. A little bit of insight to Ferrari at the moment. Stefan Johansson, this is where he actually had his first race for Ferrari last year. And Stefan Johansson has not been given the green flag for next year for the red cars of Ferrari, and it's beginning to bother him a little bit. His teammate, Michele Alboreto, has had his contract renewed and signed. Michele did not slip in the shower or fall off his motorcycle this event, as he was saying he did during the first day of practice in Monza 2 weeks ago. But Stefan Johansson is going to try and show Enzo Ferrari back in Italy that he can lead and even beat his very own teammate in the other red car of Ferrari, Michele Alboreto. And Stefan seems to be in a contest with Gerhard Berger for at least a couple of rides for next year. And Berger, in the other Benetton, was the guy that Stefan beat in the final stages of the Monza race. But Stefan Johansson, as John told you, yeah, he's still a candidate for Ferrari, but it seems as though as each week passes by and he is not signed, he is not the front runner. And should he not be the front runner for Ferrari, maybe he becomes one of the front runners for a Benetton, should Berger lead, or maybe even for one of those 2 cars on your screen right now, a McLaren. Well, at the moment, he is very heavily touted for
the McLaren team to take over Keke Rosberg, who is retiring. Well, he doesn't like us to say retired. He's quitting driving.
For the time being.
For the time being.
Yes.
But he is definitely not going to be driving for McLaren next year. Now, Stefan Johansson has been a Marlboro-sponsored driver all the way from Formula 3, Formula 2, and into Formula 1. He has carried Marlboro on his overalls from the beginning of his professional career, and you know that the seat in the Marlboro-sponsored McLaren team certainly has to have his name written on it at the moment.
After 11 laps of 70, let me review for you the top 10 at this point. Mansell, Senna, Piquet, Prost, Rosberg. Berger, the bottom 10, or the bottom 5 here in the top 10. Berger, Fabi, Johansson, Alboreto, and Arnoux.
Rene Arnoux was the gentleman who lost his Ferrari drive and let Stefan Johansson into the team. So, of course, there are always these somewhat personal vendettas that add to the competition around this Portuguese circuit.
John, Ayrton Senna, a fact that I kind of stumbled across last night, which is kind of an interesting one. You know, 14 times in his relatively young Formula 1 career, he's only driven in 43 races. 14 times, or about a third of those races, Ayrton Senna has been on the pole. 7 times this year out of 14 races. But yet, in those 14 pole performances, only 4 times in his career, and none in 1986 has he set the fastest lap in the race.
Well, Larry, Lotus has, unfortunately, the fella is back in the pits again, and we might not be able to have him coming out just very quickly. Lotus has been criticized for concentrating on qualifying setup rather than race setup, and they spent a great deal of qualifying and practice time setting it up for that one quick pole position.
Well, the points are very critical this year. As we told you, Nigel Mansell leads with 61 points. Nelson Piquet is second with 56. Alain Prost is third with 53. And Ayrton Senna, who you've been watching, is fourth with 48.
Was this horrifying accident in a rally car in Germany that put Mark Suhr in the hospital for 2 months. 4 months after that accident, he has returned to Formula 1. Mark, it was a long spell in hospital. What were your injuries after the accident?
I don't know the words in English. I had a broken collarbone, broken shoulder, broken hips, broken legs, cross here, broken ankle, both sides. And then problem is the lung, which was the most dangerous thing, and some liver problem and kidney problem.
You're lucky to be alive then, Mark.
Yes, I think for 3 weeks it wasn't really sure.
And everyone has been so happy to see you here in Portugal. We've been following your slow recovery, but still 4 months is a very short time to recover from those extensive injuries.
Yes, I think the people in the hospital, the doctors did a good job to put me together again. And yeah, of course, it's still not, I'm still not fit, but I can walk and I'm very happy about it.
Well, we're sitting here in the Barclay Arrows motorhome, surrounded again by your friends. You have to be thinking about your future. Are you here to try and decide what you're going to do relative to motorsports and your future career?
Well, first of all, I wanted to come back and see I can call my family, because I've been in this team for many years. And also to find out whether I want to drive or not, because I think if I make the decision at home, and then I might regret it coming back to the circuit and smell the fuel again, I might regret it. And on the other side, I have to be here and make contacts if I want to drive again. So I want to make a decision this weekend, yes.
What about your rally career? That was another part of your racing career, Formula 1 and rallying. Would you continue with rallying? Do you think it's safe, or do you think it's safer than Formula 1?
No, it's not for sure, because you don't realize when you drive in a rally car how dangerous it is. But I still love rallying, but I don't want a responsibility for a co-driver anymore. You know, my co-pilot died in the accident, and there's no way I'm going to drive with somebody next to me again.
Well, to finish that story, there was a very emotional scene at the Barclay USF&G motorhome this morning where Mark Suhr did announce to the world, the racing world and his racing fraternity friends there, that he has decided never again to sit inside a Formula 1 car and compete for the World Championship. He does hope to go ahead and compete in touring cars, either BMW or possibly Ford, for the touring European car Championship. Well, they're saloon-type cars, or production-type cars. And I think that may be a very good spot for Mark to go. Just one mention is that the lady you saw sitting behind Mark, sir, he credits that lady, Yolanda, for pulling him through the very dark days after the accident, and she must be given a great deal of credit for getting him back on a strong road to health.
Mark has lost considerable weight and is right now in the process of working very hard to build back his strength. Mark, he celebrated a birthday, John, on Thursday, his 35th. In his career Formula One totals, he competed 82 times. He had 2 fourth-place finishes for his best ever, 2 fifths, and 7 times he placed in the points in 6th position.
Well, I've been very happy to be with Mark over the years, since 1977 when he was in Formula 2. He actually won the Formula 2 championship in '79. As I said, it was an emotional scene, and all of his sponsors, John Schmidt of USF&G and Jim Raley and so forth, they all wished him the very best future.
There is the race leader, Nigel Mansell. We have completed 17 laps, 18 laps now as Nigel goes by the start-finish line this time. There's turn 1, turn 2. There he is working on the Zach Speed car, the good Dr. Jonathan Palmer. Remember who Brockendotter. We've seen him drop out of this race. There is turn number 3, turn number 3 coming up right here, turn number 4 on this 2.7-mile circuit, looking up toward the backstretch, which runs basically parallel to the front straightaway here at Estoril. There's a little bend in it coming up. See, Mansell executes it and heads toward turn number 6. But this is the lowest point on this circuit. We're about 400 feet on the average above sea level, and now you begin a long, steep up-climb uphill.
You should mention the cars out of the race. Capelli is out in the white AGS. We saw him parking his car with an engine problem. We don't know exactly what was wrong. With Rockendotter, they have pushed that West Zach Speed into the garage, and now he is out with electrical problems. Genzani, after 2 pit stops in the Osella, is out in Jones. We saw him spinning off the track and park the car out in the sand. We still don't know exactly why he went off circuit. We'll try and find that out for you as soon as possible.
As we watch Nigel Mansell, let's talk a little bit about points. He's moving up the lap cars. I saw the 2 Tyrrells of Martin Brundle and Philippe Streff right there. You see the white cars and the black and yellow Minardi of look like the Chesseris. And go in car Christian Danner, who is running in front on the course right now of Nigel Mansell, and within a couple of laps, Mansell will likely be moving up to lap Christian. Some pretty good shots from the in-car camera. There you see him executing turn number 3. Again, we'll tell you it's another one of the 180 degrees, and there is one of the Tyrrells who has stopped just in front of the leader, Nigel Mansell.
It's Martin Brundle, actually, with Data General getting out of the car very quickly in the Tyrrell powered by Renault. Martin, the Englishman, coming through the ranks in Formula 3, a bit of Formula 2 experience, but really won the Formula 3 championship, the British Formula 3 championship a few years ago. And, of course, Ken Tyrrell is known for bringing young drivers along. Martin Brundle having great success in the Detroit Grand Prix at some times, years back in the Cosworth-powered days. But right now, looking at the race leader and the leader in the World Championship, Nigel Mansell. Now, Mansell is powered by Honda, and trying to catch him is the Brazilian Edge Incentive powered by Renault. Just to tell you a little bit about those engines, they're both 80-degree V6s. Of course, the Honda is a bit of a bear relative to fitting the engine into the car. It was designed to fit into several different types of chassis. The cast iron block is certainly quite heavy, where the McLaren is a Porsche-designed tag-prepared engine that was actually designed to fit in that particular chassis, which gave it a tremendous help relative to aerodynamics and the engine cowling around that particular motor. But they certainly developed a great deal of horsepower. The Honda, at the moment, certainly has had tremendous success and has been fitting into the Williams, of course, not the McLaren.
There's the difference right now between first and second. It shrank a little bit the last lap because Nigel Mansell was trying to work his way through slower traffic. That's between 4 and 5 seconds. Then has picked up just a lap ago. Mansell had a 6-second lead. 14 seconds back of the leader is Nelson Piquet, the leader's teammate. In 4th position remains Alain Prost. He is just 15 seconds back, or right on the heels of Nelson Piquet. In fifth position remains Prost's teammate, K.K. Rosberg. And as you can see, he is about 18 or 19 seconds back. And Stefan Johansson has worked his way up into a points position. Stefan is now sixth, John.
Of course, Stefan Johansson fulfilled a dream of a lifetime, finishing third in Monza with some 40,000 screaming Italians below him, all hollering his name and waving the Ferrari flags and so forth. So it'd be very nice if Stefan can certainly score some points here and possibly get into the first three again, trying to tell Enzo Ferrari that he deserves another Ferrari ride next year.
We have completed 20 laps at this point, 21 laps now. We anticipate pit stops, and yes, we do expect them again at this race here in Portugal, about lap number 30. Remember, on fuel, you cannot refuel during a Formula One race. The pit stop is for tires. Goodyear and Pirelli tire engineers have found that the time that you lose in the pits in 1986 is more than made up for in new tires that you pick up during at least one pit stop during a Formula One race. So with less than a third of this race done, the leader is still Nigel Mansell. Mansell continues to lead the Portuguese Grand Prix. We remind you that next week, one of those spectacular American doubleheaders on ESPN. The Kart Indy cars from the Michigan International Speedway, where speeds this year have reached above 220 miles per hour. That's an average speed per lap for 250 miles in the high banks, the Pepsi-Cola 250. That's next Sunday, the 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, there is a tremendous points battle going on in kart this year. 5 drivers are now within 5 points of the lead. That means it's a virtual 5-way tie, although Bobby Rahal and Al Unser Jr. are tied right now for first. NASCAR Holly Farms 400, same-day live coverage. That's from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, one of the tracks where it all began, and another pretty good points battle. Although Earnhardt has a little bit of a cushion, Darrell Waltrip and Tim Richmond, both whom have had pretty good weeks in the last 4 or 5, have very high hopes for the 1986 championship.
This man in Portugal has very high hopes to become the world champion from Brazil. Nelson Piquet circling around in his Honda-powered Williams. Frank Williams looking very well here this weekend. Of course, Frank having a tremendous road car accident in the south of France earlier on in this season. He was paralyzed for some time and actually was on the brink of losing his life for several weeks in intensive care. The car you saw swinging out there to the right was that of the Marlboro McLaren of Prost, that is the current world champion and the gentleman who has a great deal to do here to remain points-wise in the possibilities for the 1987 world champion. He wants to be the world champion during 1987 to continue his reign on.
Well, this is rather complicated, but sit down, get out a pad and a pencil, and let's see if we can give you a little bit of synopsis of where the points stand right now. As we told you, there is this and 2 more races. Mansell has 61 points. Piquet, the man on your screen right there, is in second position in points. He has 56. Alain Prost has 53, and Ayrton Senna has 48. Now, let's talk about Mansell first, as we're looking at, look like Zandro Nannini coming around. There's Piquet. Well, let's talk about him and his situation in the points. With a 6-point deficit, he needs to average 2 points more than Nigel Mansell to catch and pass him for the 1986 championship. Remember, it's 9 points for first, 6 for second, 5 for third, 4 for fourth, 2 for fifth, and 1 for sixth. Did I get that right? I think one of them was wrong. I think 3 points for a fourth place. There we go. 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now, Alain Prost, he is in third in points. Well, let's talk about Senna. He pops up on the screen. Let's talk about Ayrton. He has the tallest mountain to climb. He has to score in all the three remaining races. I don't think there's any question about that. He is 13 points down to the leader, Nigel Mansell, which means that he needs to average almost 5 more per race than Nigel. Now, he is 14 points by Nigel Mansell from being locked out, which means that if Nigel gets a first and a second in these next 2 races, that no matter what Ayrton does, even if he were to win the other 2, he cannot win the point. I think the real important point here is that he needs to average about 5 points more per race than Nigel Mansell to win. Well, how about Mansell? 23 points will clinch it. That's at least 2 wins, by the way. So Mansell is a long ways from clinching the points, even though he leads right now. And after one more finish, only a top 4 finish by Nigel Mansell will add points to his total. As John mentioned to you at the beginning of the show, you only get points credited for your 11 best finishes of a single season. And after one more point finish, Nigel will have 11. It means that to add to his total after that point, he needs to finish higher than 4th place.
Back to the action, Nigel Mansell from the Midlands of England, brought into Formula One by the late and great Colin Chapman of Team Lotus. Ran for Lotus for a number of years, and after somewhat of a dissatisfaction with the team, always feeling like he was the number 2 driver, decided to go to work for Frank Williams Honda. Honda again will be with Frank Williams next season. They have announced the sponsorship for the total package of that car, and it looks like an incredibly strong team again. The team has only not scored points in one event all year long. They have been able to score points between their 2 drivers in every Grand Prix this season but one. And with that type of capability and consistency, that is why they are in the position that they are for the World Championship.
In 87 Grand Prix, Nigel Mansell has won 6, but all 6 of them have come in this season and throughout the last 4 races of last year. That gives you an idea of what type of hot streak that Nigel Mansell has been on. Not only has he won 4 times this year, but also his teammate Nelson Piquet has won 4 times. Alain Prost has won 3, and Senna has won 2.
Here you can see a very clever way that they're trying to show you the positions of the different cars around the circuit. The first blue dot there, that belongs to Nigel Mansell. Ayrton Senna was that little bit of short shoot away from him. The yellow dot is Piquet. Prost is quite close to Piquet there in the red dot. Coming pink down your road is Keke Rosberg in the yellow car. And then Stefan Johansson is quite a ways back in the white, just beginning the straightaway as Keke Rosberg turns down the short chute and into the second right-hand bend.
As you can see, there's that oval I was trying to tell you to visualize, and with that straightaway that sort of dips down into the infield, and then that rectangle that is like above the second turn part of the oval, if you will, that makes up this 3.7-mile course. Kind of ironic, John, our top 5 in points for 1986, and the people who have been recognized as the top 5 since before the beginning of the season run competitively here. Maybe this is the race that we've all been waiting for, that Big 5 to finish the entire race.
That would be outstanding. Of course, as they go through the event, they're all looking at the condition of their tires, the condition of the fuel situation, and of course how the car is handling under every circumstance, looking for little vibration, something that could be causing trouble, just puffs of smoke. Every time they pass the pits, they are in close with their team communication via radio, letting them know exactly their impressions of what the car is doing at every point. As you see the Lotus coming by, I believe it's Terry Bootson in the other USF&G Barclays Arrows car, right under that heavy braking point into that right-hander. It would be incredible that all these cars did score points and did finish the race.
John Bootson right there, as you see this replay of Ayrton going around, Terry, is fresh off of a very important win for him. He won a 1,000-kilometer World Sports Car Championship race, and he won it in a pretty fair place for him. He won it at home, a 5.5-hour race.
5.5-hour race, and it was 1,000 kilometers long, and at the end of that, there was only 20 seconds between the first 5 finishers, and there was only a half a car length between him and Derek Warwick for that checkered flag. But back here in Portugal, we're looking at, well, Nelson Piquet has set a new track record of 122.211, but we're actually looking at the John Player Lotus of Ayrton Senna. He is coming into a little bit of traffic. He has Patrick Tambay in the Ford, and also the other Osella ahead of him. Tambay has to get by the Osella himself, but Tambay is a gentleman driver and should have him in full view in the mirrors, and Ayrton, every second that he's held up, of course, is just life and death to him. But Patrick does move by doing the gentlemanly thing and lets Ayrton Senna down this long straightaway for up to 200 miles an hour.
We're at the Portuguese Grand Prix of 1986, and the Williams cars look very strong once again. Nigel Mansell continues to lead this race, as pulling into the pits is Ricardo Patrese, or is that, no, that's Derek Warwick, who has pulled into the Olivetti pit. It might be time for pit stops. We're into the late 20s here. Yes, it is. It was just a change of tires out in 8.4 seconds, so a good stop for the Britisher, Derek Warwick, who has taken over this ride in mid-season.
Well, Well, Pirelli has had 2 cars come in for tires. Now we're waiting to see what the Goodyear teams do. Everyone is a bit sitting out in the pit lane looking for their teams to come in, but it should be calculated as another 5 laps to go before the Goodyear teams come in.
Well, these pit stops that we're now getting into that period of the race for it. Here comes one of the Ferraris. The one of Michele Alboreto comes in for a stop. Again, we anticipate this. Ironically, John, here is one of the Goodyear shod cars coming in. These pit stops with all these cars running so competitive should be very critical today. That was a rapid pit stop.
7.9, very quick for Ferrari. Ferrari, at one point in the season, were considered a little bit of the clowns of pit stops, and they worked on them very hard. Every morning, they do at least a 20-minute to half-hour drill on pit stops, and a 7-second pit stop can certainly help the driver not only increase his position on the track, but possibly catch some points.
In addition to those first 6 cars on the lead lap, also still in the lead lap were Fabi, Berger, Alboreto, and Arnoux. That was before the pit stops.
Twisting.
Okay, he was being shown in 3rd position as coming to the pits. Remember, we've seen 7- and 8-second pit stops, and there's another lightning one.
7.9, the Williams team being tremendously proficient. He is going to come back just in front of several cars that he's very glad he doesn't have to get caught up in that pack of cars to get by. It's a very quick pit stop. You can see the cars coming in. We should mention that those sparks flying off the cars, those are titanium skid plates that are used to protect the bottom of the car going over the bumps. The cars are set very soft on the springs for cornering purposes, and when they get on these bumps, you will see the titanium making contact with the road and throwing the sparks up behind.
There is Zandro Nannini into the pits. John, with as good as Piquet is in the second half of a race, the pressure is really on Prost, really on Senna, and really on his own teammate with whom he's fighting for the championship, Nigel Mansell. A tremendous pit stop. I think Piquet is sitting in a terrific position for the latter stages of this race.
Exactly. Well, one thing that Piquet does do best, he has a computerized mind that he can calculate perfectly his own position and the position of the competitors around him. And at the end of all the pit stops and all the corners and all the shifts, as Senna comes into the Lotus pit, up they go. That's Peter Ward, the team manager, holding up the sign there. That sign says brakes on. They must keep the brake on to change the tire. A little bit of problem on the right rear there, and out goes Senna. The visor is up. Senna, put the visor down before you get on the straightaway. Up goes the hand, down goes the visor, and Senna has rejoined also clear of any pack traffic that could have slowed him down. We have to think that Nigel Mansell will be coming in on the finish of this completed lap, going around with one of the Ligets. Liget is holding him up a bit. You can see how frustrating that has to be to a gentleman who's trying to pull out as much time as possible over his competitors before going into the pits. Nigel, for some reason, likes to stay out on the track. He has been criticized a little bit from time to time for staying out too long, and actually, as we saw during the battle for the Grand Prix of Spain, it was the fact that he did not come in when his pit exactly told him to that may have cost him the win down there.
As a matter of fact, John, my opinion is there's no question about it. Had he come in 1 lap earlier, he had a race. For certain, if he'd have come in 2 laps earlier, as you pointed out, when he was first told to, I don't think there would have been any question. So much quicker on new tires when he came on.
And Larry, he did not go in that time either. So again, Nigel Mansell prefers to stay out on the circuit. Of course, the driver builds up a rhythm. He gets comfortable with the type of track conditions and so far. As we have Prost in, the current world champion, up goes the car, off go the 4 tires. RPMs have to come back up. A little bit of problem there again with the right rear, but 8 seconds. You can't beat that as he paced the Goodyear rubber all the way out of the pit and down the pit lane, accelerating 0 to 60 in only 3 seconds.
Right in front of Senna, it looked like. I think Prost may have gotten out in front of Senna, who has made his pit stop. Remember that Ayrton was in for 10 seconds and Prost only 8, almost 9 seconds. So it looks like that the relative track distance between those two stayed the same. Now we are waiting for the last of our 4 leaders in this race. That man right there, Nigel Mansell, to come into the pit. Reviewing once again, Prost 8.8 seconds, Piquet about 8 seconds, and Senna 10 seconds. Where will Mansell fit in?
Of course, those crews, they know that one mistake in the pits could cost their driver not only time on the track, but points in this precious world championship. And their pressure is really on them to do well. And watch the Williams coming in. Their pit is right at the very end of the pit row. The pit assignments are laid down relative to your position in the Constructors' Championship the previous year, past the McLaren pit, into the second pit. I'm sure Frank Williams is watching this from his chair just on the edge of the pit road there. Up, you can see he has the signboard down, and he is away. Last time Nigel had a bit of a problem, but not this time. 8.4 in Monza.
Oh, boy.
That was a good 10-second pit stop in Monza. They took 1.5 seconds out, and he looks in that mirror to see, where's my competition? Did anyone go by me? Am I still in first?
He's got to be looking for Nelson, because I think that Prost is running ahead of Senna, and Senna was in second position. We'll see how it stacks up. They all haven't come around yet, and the Olivetti scoring is showing Prost in second, Mansell still in first. John, I'll tell you, this is tremendous. All four of the leaders have made pit stops around 10 seconds. Senna's was the slowest. There is Stefan Johansson, who was in sixth spot before the rash of pit stop. Looks like he gets out in pretty good fashion. This is tremendous. All the leaders have been in and out of the pit without any type of difficulties whatsoever. We may have one of the best Formula One races of this season stacking up, and it's been a good year.
Of course, you saw it in Monza. There were some problems in the pits, and the gentlemen afterwards were heavily corrected by their team leaders, and a lot of practicing has been going on, and it has paid off. Nigel Mansell lives on the Isle of Man, up in the North Atlantic Sea, enjoys golf, says if he wasn't a professional driver, he'd be a professional golfer. Very determined individual, gentleman who thinks that whatever he sets a goal for can be obtained, and so far, he has proven himself right.
Johnny's so much into golf that each of the times that I've heard him set on the pole this year, in the post-qualifying news conference, he stood up there, and somewhere in the news conference, he's asked all the media, hey, what's the latest in the PGA? I know you need to know who had the best round today, who is leading. He is truly into golf.
Look at this battle here.
Oh,
the Lotus of Senna, taking that corner well over 160 miles an hour. The Williams, the McLaren. What traditional, fantastic teams and names have driven for all of these teams throughout the years. Lotus, Jimmy Clark, Emerson Fittipaldi, Williams, Pierre's Courage, Keke Rosberg, and of course McLaren, Bruce McLaren founding the team way back in the 60s. Dennis Holm winning the World Championship for them several times. James Hunt winning the championship for them. Niki Lauda. These three teams here battling for second place. They are the thoroughbreds of Formula One. They are the people who get it done year after year.
Well, what happened was we called Prost getting out of the pits. He was entering the front stretch in front of Ayrton Senna, but he just didn't have the momentum. Senna was able to get by him, and Piquet, after having that great pit stop, also had the momentum just to get by Alain Prost. So we're going to see now two of the very best drivers in the second half of a race, as again we look at Riccardo Patrese into the pits, two of the very best drivers in Formula One racing in the second half of the race. Prost there in the red and white number 1, or the rocket red and white number 1, and Piquet in the blue, yellow, and white Williams number 6 against one of the true young lions, although I don't know if it's fair to call him that right now, because Senna has really matured a lot in the 1986 season. 35 laps officially have been completed. We are halfway through this Grand Prix. Of 16 of this year. There is the contest for second position. Ayrton Senna leads it right now over Nelson Piquet. Portugal, the language that is spoken in that man's home country of Brazil. You know, the ancient mariners of this small country, Portugal, played a very prominent role in, well, making the entire world smaller. The Vikings and some renegade Italians may have probed the New World a little bit before, but the intrepid Portuguese were among the first to record and colonize. And right now, that's what this Portuguese-speaking man, Nelson Piquet, is trying to do to that guy right in front.
Well, that guy in front is Ayrton Senna, the other Brazilian in this race, and the Brazilians that have come over from Brazil, and of course they're Portuguese-speaking brothers of Portugal, are all on their feet watching this tremendous battle going on through the back sections of this course now. As you can see, that six-cylinder Renault being able to pull out of the corners a little bit better than the Honda, but as you can see also, the Williams again, advantage on the brakes, down the straightaway, in his draft. What's going to happen here? Just coming up on the start-finish line, 170, 175, 180, 190 as they come past our commentary position, but not this time. You can get a little bit of a view there. As the brakes go on, the Lotus gets a little bit weavy back and forth, going from near on 200 miles an hour down to 160 for that sweeping right-hand bend down the short chute into a tighter right-hand bend. And Mansell, he's out there in the lead, just set another track record. That's his second track record of this particular race at 121.852. Olivetti's computer doing an excellent job here, as they always do. PK right out to the edge of the apex on that exit. He puts that wheel in the grass, and that left-hand rear started spinning faster. When he came back onto the hard surface, the car would spin immediately into the, hopefully not to the barrier, but it would spin to sharp left. And that's something that he has to be very careful of on these exits, not to overuse the curb. Just hit the curb and then leave himself just that millimeter of white line as a safety gap.
Unlike Monza, where the fastest way around the circuit was to tear him off the curbs, that's not the case here in Portugal. While this is going on, Mansell is taking giant strides, not only toward victory here in Portugal in 1986, but maybe toward the World Driving Championship. Let's watch closely once again as PK puts the pressure on Senna. Can he use his slipstream to perhaps move to the inside? He needs to move to his right, your left. No, not this time. Mansell has a 13-second lead now on that duo. Senna second, PK third. Prost is fourth and being left in the wake of these two gentlemen. He has slipped 3 seconds behind this contest for second position. Fifth is KK Rosberg. Sixth is Gerhard Berger. All cars still on the same lap. Seventh is Stefan Johansson. Eighth is the other Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. And ninth is Rene Arnoux. In 10th, 1 lap down now is Theo Fabi. Correction, still in the lead lap is Fabi. 11th is Philippe Alliot. 12th is 11th is Philippe Alliot. 12th is Ricardo Patrese. He is the last car in the lead lap. And as we continue to watch this battle for second, here are the other cars in the top 20. Dumfries, Warwick, Boutsen, DeChesteris, Palmer, Danner, Nannini, and Baird.
A lot of cars running this far into the race. We're almost at half distance, or we are at half distance. And there are a lot of cars still circulating this particular track. You saw there PK taking a real hard look there on the inside twice on one particular lap, looking at that braking distance, trying to figure out if now's the time I'm going to put it sideways. These two in Hungary went at it twice on 2 consecutive laps, again under heavy braking past the pit straight. And for the first time in a long time, PK went sideways, had the car totally sideways twice, but he did make it by. Is he going to risk that here? Well, he certainly took a couple good looks, but he decided, let's just sit back here a little bit and see if we can force Senna into a mistake.
Prost has finally gotten around the Brabham and has once again inched up, tried to reel in, as we are wanting to say back in the States. You can see him there in the background behind Nelson Piquet. This is the beginning parts of the course. It's just coming out of turn number 4. This is that backstretch in the middle of the infield section. Just went around the kink, which is turn 5, coming up on turn 6. And after turn 6, the lowest point in altitude on the circuit, we're down to about 300 feet right here, begins to go uphill, coming up toward turn 7. Now watch for the Olivetti Bridge after this right-hander. You can see a 13-second difference between first Mansell and second Senna. There's that Olivetti Bridge going uphill now at the very top of the racetrack. Turn number 8, rapidly downhill in quick succession. You'll see turn number 9, turn number 10, and then turn number 11, which is a 180-degreer, which is about the equivalent, by the way, at 383 yards as a half-mile turn on the oval at the States. Now, right now, it doesn't look like he's in a turn, but you can see as they rapidly come out of that corner, that shot kind of distorts you as you look right through the camera. That is the 11th turn on this race course.
Senna shooting past on the brace, goes past the exact speed of Dr. Jonathan Palmer, but he did not let the Williams through. That's going to cost a bit. He has to maintain his line no matter how he tries to get out of the way of these leaders. If he goes too far out of the racing groove, especially at a 160-mile-an-hour turn, he's going to get in trouble. But no, Jonathan Palmer is still holding up the Williams all the way through turns 3 and 4. Now watch PK try and reel in the Zach speed, the four-cylinder Zach speed, as we see one of the Ligiers, Alio, going into the garage. That might be his day, and there comes PK around the Zach speed of Dr. Jonathan Palmer. And you see that Palmer is looking in his mirrors, and Mr. Prost is hot on his trail, right up his exhaust, as we say. But that has certainly given Senna a bit of a breather. Patrick Tambay back into the pits. He's just come out of the pits. They were adding brake fluid to his vehicle. He's going to be pulling just in front of our commentary position. But the Beatrice Team Haas Lola Ford is having not the best weekend here in Portugal.
With as many cars still on the track, as John just mentioned, the driver who has the ability to get through traffic the best may be at the real advantage here at the Portuguese Grand Prix. Portugal, we're just a few miles inland from the coastal holiday resort of Estoril. Matter of fact, the circuit is called the circuit at Estoril, Autodromo, as they say over here in Portugal. Most everybody's hotel here that is visiting the Portuguese Grand Prix looks out over the Atlantic Ocean where the sun sets. This is the Western European peninsula. It kind of juts out into the Atlantic, and it's dominated by Spain, although the buffer on the Atlantic Ocean is this country of Portugal. You might say that this is Europe's lighthouse of the Atlantic.
Well, Peke Rosberg is looking for a lighthouse at the moment. When he came by here, his engine sounding very rough. To me, it could have either been a valve problem or a cracked exhaust. There's a little bit of smoke coming out of the back of that car. But for right now, Ayrton Senna has his mirrors absolutely full of the other Brazilian, Nelson Piquet, number 6, in the Canon Williams. These two have been battling at each other for the last 10 laps, and that has given the leader of the World Championship in the other Williams, Nigel Mansell, the chance to pull away a bit. He must have a good 15-second lead at the moment, and Olivetti is telling us that it is about the 15-second lead. But still, these two people have a tremendous competition between them. Back in Brazil, there are Senna fans and there are PK fans, and Radio Globo from Brazil have been here for days setting up just for this fantastic battle. But Prost just lying there in the back. You can just see him coming up and up a little bit each time Rosberg is out of the Portuguese Grand Prix.
There are, as a matter of fact, 21 simultaneous television signals with commentators going out around the world. 15 of them, by the way, only have one man. Those signals, or that signal to the States, is one of only 6 that has 2 commentators. And the signals go as far away as Sydney, Australia, although that signal is one of 6. There is Senna putting some laps on Christian Danner, one of 6 that has no commentator away, as far away as Sydney, Australia. So altogether, 21 simultaneous signals, making up one of the world's largest TV networks.
Christian Danner again, Nelson Piquet in the same position. These drivers cannot totally go off that race line. Christian Danner does put himself on the marbles. He let Piquet by, and he's trying to let Prost by now, but still, they have to be careful. They cannot just disappear, but Senna did a beautiful job of getting through the traffic a little bit earlier. It's Andrea de Cesaris. Andrea has not been known in the past for being the kindest of people being lapped, especially by leaders. This is the pit of Benetton, some green Benetton shorts being shown there. The Olivetti car of number 8, Patrese, parked without the driver in it, so we can count the BMW-powered Olivetti Brabham out at the moment. But this is the battle going on right now. Senna doing what he does best, leading Nelson Piquet and Andrea de Cesaris. Please let me by, says the Williams driver.
De Cesaris right now, John, has also got to be feeling his oats. You know, he has not finished one Grand Prix in 1986. Seldom is it that he even gets this far. So right now, Andrea, even though he's got to pay attention to his mirrors, hopefully he's moving over right now to let Prost by. Yes, he does. Has to be feeling pretty good about his chances here. And getting way offline was Nelson Piquet, kicking up a little bit of dirt. And that's a very tricky maneuver. He made it look easy, John. But when you kick up dirt like that, the tires are breaking loose, and when you get back on the pavement, you've got to make immediate adjustments.
Not only adjustments, but those tires are breaking loose. Those tires are also beginning to wear a bit. Senna certainly driving a little bit more conservative line than Nelson. You can see Senna leave that white line alone on those exits of those cars, where those corners, where Piquet is all over the white line, plus the curb, plus the dirt. Prost going past the leaderboard. Mansell, Senna, Piquet, Prost, Berger, Johansson again trying to get those points. And it's one of the Ferrari, Stefan Johansson, into the dirt just past the commentator's booth here. He has the power back up, and Berger is getting out of his Benetton. Those two for 5th and 6th place, obviously battling away. You can see Keke Rosberg's car parked there. I don't know if contact may have been made, or it could have been just trying to beat each other on the braking there. Of course, they're going from near on 200 miles an hour down to about 160. But here come the leaders around. I'm sorry we did not have that on our screen. This is the Portuguese Grand Prix here that delivers the signal to us. We cannot control that, but still, Ayrton Senna has a strong second position.
John, more of that interesting tussle between Stefan Johansson and Gerhard Berger. I mean, it seems like they have been set in opposition almost all year long. They're competing for rides. They've been competing on the track the last 2 or 3 races. Very interesting. They keep coming together. I know they're good friends because I've seen them together in the paddock, but they keep getting forced into these situations where they're standing in opposition of each other.
You may have seen them in the paddock, but you don't know what they're saying to one another.
That's true.
Right? This rivalry actually started in Australia last year when Berger was put off the circuit trying to pass Stefan Johansson when he was driving for Barclay. So a year-long battle still coming down to race 14 of the 16 Grand Prix for this year.
Again, the race winners of this year. Piquet and Mansell have each won 4 times. Alain Prost has won 3. Ayrton Senna has won 2. This is number 5 for Mansell. As we look at the cars that are out of the 1986 Portuguese Grand Prix, Nigel Mansell still continues to tug on that rope. It's like tug of war, but he has stretched his advantage to 15 seconds over the second running Ayrton Senna on the screen right now. Among those out of the race, most recently, Andre De Cesaris, Berger, Warwick, Rosberg, Aljo, Brundle, Hood, Rottengatter, Alain Jones out very early, Ivan Capelli in the newest entry on the Formula One trail, and Piercarlo Genzani. Right there on your screen is 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Senna, Piquet, and Prost.
Look at the front end of Prost's car. It's absolutely covered with oil. The white part of that McLaren, the nose section, absolutely gone dark from the oil coming from the Honda. Now, the Williams car does not look that oil covered, so the Renault may be running a little bit cleaner. Look at the oil all the way up onto his visor and onto the helmet. They have tearaway visors, so once a visor does get oil covered, totally to the fact where it's impairing their vision. They rip that off, but here he comes. No, he takes a look. Piquet says, I'm with you, Senna. Don't make one mistake. I'm going to be right up your exhaust and pass. Just one little braking problem, one little gear shift, and he's going to be by. And when he does go by, he may go away. Supposedly, the Honda has greater point-to-point acceleration, but the Renault, with that tremendous torque out of the corners, is what's keeping Ayrton Senna ahead of Nelson Piquet.
With 47 of 70 planned laps down, this looks like it's going to be a battle right to the end. John, let's take just a little bit time out and make mention of what's going to happen as we watch Senna and Piquet and Prost on October the 3rd. Jean-Marie Ballest has said that there will be a number of announcements concerning Formula One, and here comes Piquet. Back to that in a second. Piquet is making his move right past all of the spectators here in the front stretch. The Portuguese cameramen don't follow it as they continue to look down the front stretch. We don't know how it turned out. Nelson Piquet had the racing line. If he had enough momentum, here they come around.
Got it.
Piquet has him. Okay, we can see him. We pick him up going down the backstretch, John. Here they come out of turn number 3.
Oh, Piquet lost it again.
Piquet lost it again. And there is the very heavily oiled Alain Prost. You can see that Prost used that moment to pick up a little bit on Senna and Piquet. There is the backstretch here in the infield section of this racetrack. Going into turn number 1, apparently Piquet had that line, but just didn't have enough horsepower to outpower the Renault as they went down at the end of this long 0.6 of a mile, 1 kilometer front stretch.
Well, when we saw him on the backstretch, he did have more than half a car length ahead, but somewhere before the camera got back to him, Senna grabbed it back. We could not see what line it was. I was just about ready to compliment the coverage of this race with the Portuguese director, but at the moment, he did not follow the biggest event so far in this particular battle.
I think that would be called a lost snap from the center to the quarterback. Well, John, we were talking about that date of the 3rd of October, that we expect many things to happen as far as Formula One racing goes. There's a lot of things that are right now apparently under tow. The possibility of a new engine configuration ruling, maybe a new setup for races, but there seems to be a lot of other things going on.
Great number of things. You had a tremendously heated FOCA meeting, FOCA Formula One Constructors Association. Tremendous battle in there as far as what engines are going to be allowed next season. At the moment, they are heavily considering 3.5-liter normally aspirated engines against the turbos with a pop-off valve. Everyone trying to deal with about 600 horsepower, and the normally aspirated cars being allowed at 500 kilos with 540 for the turbos. So a great change in Formula One is coming, trying to reduce the cost of it. Right now, it can take $10 to $12 million to score points and win championships in Formula One, and they are having problems securing the sponsorships to field those type of expenses, and Formula One wants to be as strong as far as numbers of cars ready to go racing, and they're looking for ways to reduce it. It's the turbocharged motors that are going to be eliminated sometime in the near future.
Balestra has said that his goal is a fair sporting balance, or in other words, give more teams an equal chance to win and improve at the same time overall safety. Hope it happens and see how it turns out.
Again, I'm sorry, our director here has lost the leaders. That's Rene Arnoux in the Z10-sponsored Ligier going past the car in the sand there, the Benetton car of Berger. Berger, the Austrian, and has certainly been the young lion of this year, having to park once again. But there's Prost in his oil-covered McLaren, sponsored by Marlboro. And there are the big three fighting for the big 2 and the big 6 points that everyone wants. Senna wanting those points. At the moment, Senna is 13 points out of the lead. 6 more points would certainly bring him closer to his goal. He can count all of the remaining races. He does not have to drop any points, and he certainly does not want the man behind him to get any more points because he's only 5 points out.
You know, John, just a note about Rene Arnoux. We haven't seen very much from him this year, but he is among the leaders in all time of Formula One. He has raced 109 times. On 18 occasions, he sat on the pole, and 7 times he has won. There is Stefan Johansson back underway again. Remember that Stefan was off into the sand off the end of the long front stretch, just a couple of laps to go, and Stefan has run in the top 10 and has been a threat for the top 6 all day, and he's still showing up there. He is the last car in the lead lap. Somehow, the leader, Mansell, has moved up. There is Nigel. Put a lap on K.O. Bobby, who runs 7th. Mansell once again putting the race's fastest lap, but he has yet to catch Stefan Johansson.
Well, obviously, Stefan was able to restart or keep running from that spin, but the thing that hurt him the most was that his teammate, Alboreto, in the other Ferrari, got by.
Nigel Mansell has set this race's fastest lap. Only 5 have set race's fastest laps this year, and Mansell is second with 4. Atmosphere at the Grand Prix of Portugal here in Estoril compared to many of the Grand Prix we have visited this year, places like Brands Hatch and Lords, even in Hungary. But it is a terrific facility. The main grandstand here is a superstructure like many of the new stadia in America. And as a matter of fact, it also reminded me a little bit of the space age-like structure at the Dulles Airport in suburban Washington, D.C. On Thursday night, that's this coming Thursday, the 25th of September, live college football here on ESPN, Maine versus Boston University at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I know the time is a little different in other parts of the country, but live big-time college football here on ESPN as we continue the tradition as the best sports and some of the hottest games on ESPN.
18 seconds between first and second here in Portugal. Mansell and the Honda-powered Williams, Ayrton Senna and John Player, black and gold, Lotus powered by Renault. And you know, Larry, it's so easy for Mansell to lose his concentration in a situation like this, but what he's actually doing is setting new track records. 1 minute, 20 seconds he's down to now, which is extremely fast. The fuel has been draining out of that car into those 800 horsepower, making the car absolutely, totally light from beginning. They run 55 gallons of fuel, and as that fuel goes away, the car and the chassis reacts totally differently, and he has taken advantage of the lightening of that car due to fuel use, and he has set a new track record at 1 minute, 20 seconds.
John, 55 laps completed, and Nigel Mansell has led 55 laps. And that man right there, Ayrton Senna, despite all the pressure from Piquet, and despite being nosed out 1 lap in the pit area by Alain Prost, has run in second position the entire race. So Senna, who really needed to do well in this race to get the job done, the guy who really has got to see his championship hopes disappearing, not altogether, but sort of disappearing into the horizon, has got to be the defending champion, Prost.
Well, Prost has put on some tremendous charging in the last 10 laps, Larry. If you think back a few races, he has certainly been able to conserve his fuel and his tires better than some of the competitors in front of him, and he's seen them get into fuel and tire problems in the last 10 laps or so and be able to go on and even score victories this year. So we can always think that he is calculating the situation on a millisecond basis, and he may not be as far out of this event as we think, although at the moment he's not even, there he is, he's in the picture now. He certainly gave us a worry there. But Senna, looking in his mirrors, you can see him just bobbing that head a little bit left and right. There, he just peeked into that right-hand mirror to make sure that his countryman was not going to be trying to get by, as he did so bravely twice on 2 consecutive laps and finally succeeding down in Hungary.
Well, here are the people still in this. You mentioned Mansell, of course, the leader many times. Ayrton Senna runs second after 56 laps. Piquet is in third position, and Alain Prost is in fourth. Fifth is number 27 of Michele Alboreto. His teammate Stefan Johansson is sixth. Teo Fabi runs in seventh. Rennie Arnoux is eighth. Johnny Dumfries, Senna's teammate, and the other Lotus is in ninth. Riccardo Patrese brings one of the Brabhams to 10th position. He, along with Dumfries, Arnoux, and Fabi, are 1 lap down. In 11th position is one of the USF&G Arrows with Terry Boutsen at the helm. His teammate, Christian Danner, is 12th. A couple of very consistent performances for those two. Jonathan Palmer is 13th. Zendro Nannini is 14th in the Minardi. Alan Berg, who has finished his only Grand Prix that he's ever competed in, is doing it again. He's in 15th position in the Osella. And Patrick Tambe, who has spent a significant amount of time in the pit area, is being shown by Olivetti in 16th, John.
Just past the start-finish line, you can see the font coming up onto the screen there. That's put up by the national broadcasters. Again, Ayrton Senna negotiating that 160-mile-an-hour right-hander down the short shooting to the other right-hander. Ayrton Senna using the full track there. I was just about to say that he has not been using as much track as Nelson Piquet is, coming up behind the Canadian driver in the Osella Berg. And I'm sure that Berg is having a few blue flags waved at him. A blue flag means, please look in your mirror, there is faster traffic coming up behind you. Berg had a little bit of criticism during qualifying for holding up a couple cars, so he was reprimanded, and I'm sure he's cleaned off those mirrors and making a great attempt to try and stay out of the faster car's way. Ayrton Senna. What a talented young man, coming up through Formula 3 in England. Had the championship in Formula 3 several years ago. Martin Brundle was the one who came second that year to Ayrton Senna. Brundle winning the Formula 3 championship the following year. Nelson Piquet again, still using those brakes. Just putting on that pressure. A driver will actually apply pressure by curling the end of his toes, trying to get just the exact pressure to keep those brakes from just breaking into that apex and trying to de-accelerate. The fastest thing a Formula 1 car does is actually stop. It can de-accelerate much quicker than it can accelerate. And there you saw very quickly there. Prost throwing off one of those visors, trying to come up with a little bit better vision.
58 laps of 70 have been completed. And talking about qualifying, once again, the Benettons were very quick, showing tremendous straightaway speeds this week. Nigel Mansell continues as he has since the beginning of this race. The Portuguese Grand Prix, he leads it and looks for more points.
Version, but the front wing type. What it is, it's this tiny little strip that closes the area between the wing end plate and the ground. What it does is actually create tremendous suction underneath the front wing, therefore giving the driver better turning in forces in and out of the corners. Now, a couple years ago, these skirts went the entire length of the vehicle, and they were taken off to help reduce cornering speeds. But now, because of a change in the rules, mini skirts are back in Portugal.
A lot of time this weekend checking out all the mini skirts in the pit area here at Portugal this weekend.
I noticed that. Again, a little bit of blurred shot there of our leader, Nigel Mansell. Those rear wings cause a vortex. And here, let's pick up this graphic. It's quite good. The blue, just at the end of the straightaway, is Mansell. The whole straightaway away, you have the green of Senna and the yellow of Piquet, with Prost, I believe, falling back a little bit now. I'm going to have to bring up a little bit of distance towards the leaders to be fully competitive for these last 10 laps. But what a tremendous battle here. It almost reminds me of the old Cosworth trains where 3 and 4 and 5 cars would just hook on to one another during an entire Grand Prix, and the last 6 laps were incredibly spectacular.
To my wife back in the States, of course, we were referring to the mini skirts on all of the race cars. And by the way, John, a correlation to what's happening in Indianapolis cars, there are some variations coming about on the wings of Indianapolis cars. They are building mini air dams around a lot of the wings, particularly in the rear. So small, almost infinitesimal to the eye, variations beginning to sprout on the wings on both sides of the Atlantic.
Mentioning Indianapolis type.
Here it comes, America. Here it comes, America. This is a guy who spent the last decade in Europe. Go ahead, John.
Last decade in Europe. I would like to point out that 3 of the top 4 people in Indianapolis type, I can hardly say
I know, John. Chokes you up, doesn't it?
We have Bobby Rahal with Formula One experience. Danny Sullivan with a full year of Formula One. Mario Andretti is a former world champion in Formula One. Why is it that the people with Formula One are doing so well against all the other poor Yanks over there with IndyCar?
I would also like to point out that 4 of the top 10 currently ranked in points came from sprint car racing in America, and one of them, Rick Mears, came from off-road racing. Anyway, getting back to the Formula One side of the Atlantic, as you see, second and third place continuing to tiptoe through the tulips, as I am wanting to say. Let's go to the number 1 through number 5 rankings and all-time wins. I've been asked this question a number of times by people back in the States. Yes, Jackie Stewart still leads with 27 wins. At Piquet, we're going to watch this battle for just a second. Looks like he may be getting ready to make his move, but Stewart, getting back to that story, continues to lead with 27 all-time wins. Tied and ranked second is Jim Clark and Niki Lauda. In third, actually tied for fourth, I should put it, is Juan Manuel Fangio and Alain Prost. He has 24 wins. Now, what that means, as you can see on this graph, is that every one of his next 4 wins will either move him up 1 in the career rankings or tie him with somebody else. You can see that Niki Lauda raced the largest number of years, 13. He obviously had the most number of career starts, 171. Something else a lot of people ask about is the percentage of wins. You can see that Fangio, who ran in a completely different era of Formula One racing, leads with 47%. Clark ended up with 34, Jackie Stewart 28, and Alain Prost is right up there, but not ahead of Stewart or Clark yet, with 24% career total wins. The Portuguese Grand Prix, a great battle shaping up for second on back, second, third, and fourth, but Nigel Mansell is really putting it on everybody else. Highways, as we know them in Portugal, there's no autostrada like in Italy or autobahn like in Germany. As a matter of fact, when following the route from the airport to Estoril and then on to the circuit, you seem to alternate between 4-lane roads and then roads snaking through city streets that were lined and covered by trees. There were 4 lanes, then 2 lanes, lots of traffic circles, and the trees. This is almost a Polynesian-type atmosphere. There are a lot of cypress trees. There are also palm trees, and everything seems to be at the side or at the very bottom of a hill. It's an unusual country, an unusual layout, at least compared to many spots that you can visit in America, for that matter. And the TV over here is very unusual also. There's no continuity like in America. You may be watching TV and in the middle of the afternoon see everything from videos to soap operas, back-to-back, on to documentaries. And some shows are even in English with Portuguese subtitles, although the majority of them, of course, in the home language, Portuguese.
Portuguese are trying to teach their youth English. In Denmark, where I lived for 6 years, everything on TV that is produced in English is actually shown in English and subtitles as that's becoming popular.
And PK has spun.
Going into that corner, you could see him just barely lock up that right.
Prost goes by.
Prost goes by. The back speed goes by. He keeps the engine running. But my gosh, PK.
What a blow to the World Championship hopes of Nelson Piquet. Everything was breathing along here with 63 laps complete. Well inside of 7 laps in the end. John, can you believe it? That is history itself. Piquet seemingly just losing control. It was like a brake lock.
I could not believe it. It was unbelievable that he came into that corner a bit too hot. You can see it. He's struggling with the car. He's trying to keep it. He's got the left rear locked. It's bringing the car around. You can see where the left rear is locked there. Now, you have to push in on the clutch very quickly and rev the engine while he's still trying to maintain some kind of directional control, not to go back onto the circuit and possibly be T-boned. But Nelson Piquet cannot make a mental mistake like that. It is not his character, and right now he wants to kick himself so hard that it might put him past Prost, but he's just spun his chances away here for 6 championship points.
Wow, John, that's a big one, because both Senna and Prost have remained in this race, so it really plays into Nigel Mansell's hand. Now, in a situation like this, even though it's his teammate, I think the team is obligated to somehow get the word to Nigel that Piquet is now in 4th place. Not that Mansell needs to push, and that lead has stretched to 18 seconds as the number 7 Brabham car of Ricardo Patrese comes in for a late pit stop. You can see they're not very anxious, and Ricardo looking wantonly up to his crewman saying, what is it now?
He was in 10th place, and he had been sort of misfiring as he came by our position here. That BMW engine not being too terribly healthy. That's both Brabhams out of the Portuguese Grand Prix.
Nelson Piquet now dropping back to 4th position as Senna moves up to 2nd. Alain Prost moves up to 3rd. Both of them are helped just a little bit, but the man who really gets help, not just in this race, but in the World Championship standings, is his teammate, Nigel Mansell. An almost unbelievable moment. Everybody knows how talented of a race driver Nelson Piquet is, and I think, John, that we saw an example of how much pressure the World Championship can turn on just everybody in the latter stages of a season. Even though Nigel was significantly behind Mansell, it was pretty obvious he was giving it 100% at that moment, trying to catch up.
Well, the advantage that the Williams has over the Lotus was on braking, so Nigel knew, Piquet knew that to gain space and time on the other Brazilian in the Lotus that he had to use those brakes to a maximum. Now, there's so much oil on these cars, I have to think that there has to be a lot of oil on the circuit. And to me, it looked like the back end was going just a little bit back and forth, and possibly the oiled surface of the track is what caused that demise of Nelson Piquet in that braking situation. But he's a 2-time world champion. Jackie Stewart, who is not with us this weekend, considers him the #1 driver in Formula One. Jackie says, if I had only one driver in Formula One racing for me, it would be Nelson Piquet, because of his mental strength under stress. And that is why we call it unbelievable.
There is Nigel Mansell completing lap number 66 of 70. Only 3 contemporary drivers have won more than 10 Formula One races. A total of 12 have won. The leading winner among all the contemporaries obviously would be Alain Prost. The second leading winner is Nelson Piquet, whom John was just talking about. He's won 17 times, a total of 4 this year. And the third leading winner is Alan Jones. He has not won in 1986, but has won 12 times, and of course is a former world champion. Another statistic, John, I think we left everybody up in the air about it. I left everybody up in the air. I mentioned that Mansell is #2 on the list of those who have set the races fastest lap so far this year. Piquet, interestingly enough, is number 1. 5 times he's done it. Alain Prost has done it twice, as has Gerhard Berger 2 times, and Teo Fabi once, the last race at Monza. That means only 3 teams have set the race's fastest lap. Not one of them is a Lotus.
Again, the lap record has to be set in the race, and Lotus concentrates on qualifying. They get an awful lot of publicity for their sponsors by grabbing those numerous pole positions as the Williams comes by the other Lotus. There's the Tombe Ford-powered car. There's the 2 arrows still circulating around here. Christian Danner totally covered in oil. Senna, the Ferrari of Stefan Johansson 1 lap down, but I'll tell you, 3 laps to go, and Prost seems extremely close in these closing laps to the black and gold Lotus. There you saw the Ferrari right up his exhaust, but that's 1 lap down. We'll have to take a little bit of a look when we can get both of these cars of Prost and Senna in the picture. If the McLaren does not finish 1 and 2 in this race, which they're not because Keke Rosberg has dropped out, Williams has won the Constructors' Championship. So at this moment, Frank Williams, sitting in his wheelchair after that horrifying accident in the south of France at the beginning of this year, has won the 1986 Constructors' Championship for Formula One.
With 67 laps down, a quick rundown here of the cars still out on circuit. Mansell, of course, the leader. They're the top 6. Senna, Prost is 3rd. Piquet holds on to 4th. The 2 Ferraris of Alboreto and Johansson are 5th and 6th. Those are the final points positions. 7th through 15th, here they are. Fabi in the Benetton, Arnoux in the Ligier, Dumfries in the other Lotus, Boutsen and Danner in the Arrows cars, Palmer in the West Zaxby, Patrese in the Brabham, Nannini in the Minardi, and Berg in the Osella. Alan Berg going for his 2nd Grand Prix finish.
Berg, the only North American in the event. We saw Eddie Cheever in Italy. He's certainly trying to get back into Formula One, having quite a good year in endurance racing, but there's a yellow flag going there. I cannot see exactly...
Like a Minardi.
I cannot see exactly who was off the track there, but someone had stopped. It was a red car, which to me, the red cars left on the circuit are either the Zach Speeds or the Ferraris. So we'll have to take a look at that as far as the computer will show us here in another lap who has gone missing. Nigel Mansell, the father of 2 very nice children. His wife, Rosemary, lives up with him on the Isle of Man. He jets back and forth in a private plane. He's going for his master's degree in avionics, working out of the airport there on the Isle of Man. Enjoys quite a bit of a quiet life, a very polarized life, from the stresses, strains, noise, and speeds of Formula One back to the North Atlantic, where sheep and fishing and controlled environment up there.
That wasn't me, by the way. 69 laps have been completed. There is 1 lap to go. Nigel Mansell continues to lead this one. Mansell, who is looking toward 9 championship points. There are 2 more Formula One races left. Mexico, where we will be in 2 weeks. And by the way, that yellow flag is still waving. Most of the drivers are going to spend the week between Mexico and Australia vacationing in the Caribbean. A lot of the crew members, the owners, sponsors, that type, they're going to go back to Europe, spend the time there. The drivers are going to continue to relax in the Caribbean while all the crews, the hard-working people, load up, get on the airplane, and head toward Australia. But Nigel Mansell looking to make this hopefully his easiest lap of the 70 today. He's halfway through as he goes underneath the Olivetti Bridge.
Nigel Mansell always trying very hard.
And we
have him off camera, but we can see him from our commentator's position. He has fuel problems. I'm sure of it, where the fuel was sloshing to one side of the car. He virtually came to a standstill. He will not be able to go too many laps. He might be able to creep along to the checkered flag, but still he is going to definitely, he has been passed by Prost.
Here comes the checkered flag.
Nigel Mansell wins the Portuguese Grand Prix, both arms up, and he gets 9 points towards that World Championship. Very strong position. Excellent going, Nigel.
Looking for second running Alain Prost, will he be ahead of Ayrton Senna? The camera's not following him. We're leaning out of our commentary position looking for Prost. He has not yet crossed the finish line as they continue to follow. There goes Prost. Alain Prost finishes second. Now looking for Senna as one of the Ferraris a lap down goes by. That was Stefan Johansson. Still following our winner, Nigel Mansell, around. Still looking for Senna, and Senna is not around yet. This could be a golden opportunity for Ferrari to pick up some extra championship points. Everybody along pit row is straining, craning their necks out. The main grandstand is looking for Senna. The Benetton Matteo Fabi. There is Johnny Dumfries. He is on his cool-off lap. There is the winner of this race, Nigel Mansell. And we are yet to see Senna as Jonathan Palmer goes by. The third running Nelson Piquet, make that he was fourth running, he becomes third running. And Nelson Piquet gets third in this race, and Ayrton Senna has a major heartbreak on the final lap of the Portuguese Grand Prix. We will try to unscramble all of this for you, including the latest in the 1986 quest for the World's Championship, where Nigel Mansell has taken a giant stride toward winning. The hill up at turn number 7, all the way around to the start-finish line and crossed it, but he was credited with 4th place, giving him a total of 51 points, and that is significant. We'll get back to that in a minute. The top 6, Nigel Mansell winning, Alain Prost getting second, Nelson Piquet, teammate to Mansell, clinching the Constructors' Championship for Williams, gets third. Ayrton Senna, as we mentioned, gets 4th. Michele Alboreto leads the Ferrari brigade in 5th and 6th, with Stefan Johansson getting 6th position. John, the points.
The points in the World Championship of Formula One at the moment gives Nigel Mansell 70 points. You have Nelson Piquet with 60 points, Alain Prost 59 points, Ayrton Senna 51 points. There's no use of going on any further than that because those are the people that still have a chance to win this championship. Nigel Mansell doing an excellent job here, leading from flag to flag. But Ayrton Senna used up his fuel in that battle with Piquet. He kept that boost up, and he used up the fuel. Prost sat there, dropping back, lurking there, saving his fuel, and came in to 2nd position.
Not only that, John, but with 51 total points, Senna right now, a grand total of a maximum of 18 available. Ayrton Senna's total can only be 69. With 70 points already scored by Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna just ran out of gas for the World Championship. To celebrate his win here in Portugal, he also celebrates in the back of his mind, maybe, just maybe, a World Championship. Nelson Piquet is second now in points, just 10 points behind, and Alain Prost is third with 59 points. Ayrton Senna, eliminated today, has only 51 points. So from Portugal, this is Larry Newber for John Visignano saying so long, everyone. See you in Mexico.